Today's video is about a soul legend who was once Motown's biggest star. This vocalist first came to the attention of Berry Gordy as a 17-year-old, hawking a song that she written for Jackie Wilson, which became her first hit with Motown. The centerpiece of today's video is all about Mary Wells. Now before we start, let's be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to be sure you won't miss out any more uploads. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. Born Mary Esther Wells on May 13, 1943 in Detroit, Michigan. She's the youngest of three children to Geneva Campbell and Arthur Wells. Her mother worked as a house cleaner while her father was absent since birth. When she was 2 years old, Wells was diagnosed with spinal meningitis and partial paralysis. Due to this, she was partially blind in one eye and she was visually and hearing impaired. At the age of 10, Wells tested positive for tuberculosis. She was able to regain her health and able to function normally. Now, Detroit around this time was the fourth largest city in America, where jobs was thriving. Now, although jobs was thriving, blacks was forced to live in the slums of Detroit. Growing up, Wells stayed in a poverty neighborhood where the poorest of the poor stayed, that was called the Black Bottom.
There was an area in Detroit, which thank God I was so young I don't remember it, but some parts of it called Black Bottom, which was the bottom of poverty. It was really bad in the beginning.
Wells spent a lot of time in the hospital as a young child, where she witnessed musical plays, which made her feel joy. Experiencing how music can make people feel different emotions inspired her to sing. At a young age, Wells started singing and learning how to play the clarinet to help cope with the pain that she experienced. Like many families at this time, Wells was part of a church-going family, even participating in her church choir. Now, her voice was so powerful at a young age. By the age of 10, she went from singing in church choir to singing in nightclubs. By the age of 12, she began helping her mom work to bring in extra money. As she stated, she hated seeing her mother work so hard for so little pay. In 1958, a then 15-year-old Mary Wells approached Berry Gordy at Detroit's 20th Grand Club with the song that she wrote for Jackie Wilson. She went to Gordy since she knew about his working relationship that the duo had. Gordy was tired at this point, probably for being approached by individuals who had no talent. He told Wells to sing the song in front of him instead. So she did it, and she snatched her soul with her amazing vocals. By the time Wells turned 17, Gordy took her to Detroit United Sound Systems to record the song. Now after 22 takes, the song was done. This song will be known as Bye Bye Baby. Wells attended and graduated Northwestern High School in 1960, which is the same high school that was attended by Detroit legends such as Melvin Franklin, Otis Williams, Richard Street, and Florence Ballard, to name a few. In high school, Wells had her eyes set on becoming a scientist, but after hearing the success of some local singers like Jackie Wilson and the Miracles, she changed her mind and decided to become a singer-songwriter. Weeks after graduation, Wells married R&B singer, conductor, and dancer Herman Lewis' girlfriend. In June of 1961, William Mickey Stevenson wrote the song I Don't Want to Take a Chance for Wells.
Take a chance. I don't wanna take a
Wells' early recordings had a rougher R&B sound. She later became the third Motown artist to record a top 40 hit after Money's That's What I Want by Barrett Strong and Shop Around by The Miracles. In November of 1961, Wells' debut album was released titled Bye Bye Baby, I Don't Want to Take a Chance. Now, Motown was building Wells up as the first lady of Motown. In fact, Mary Wells was actually the third lady of Motown behind Claudette Rogers of The Miracles, who was called the same name by Berry Gordy, and in 1959, the label signed gospel blues singer Mabel John, who Motown also used the same name for. Now, although Wells isn't the first lady of Motown, she's the first solo female artist to see success, making her the first lady of Motown with a hit. Berry Gordy paired Smokey Robinson up with Wells to work on her second album, which led to major success. First single with the touch of Robinson became Wells' first hit with the song The One Who Really Loves You.
Love you better wake up, yeah.
July 17th, 1962, Wells released her second single with You Beat Me to the Punch.
Until you must have had a hunch. So you came up to.
This song made Wells become Motown's first star to receive a Grammy nomination. June of 1962, Wells' second album released titled The One Who Really Loves You. And this album was mistakenly cited as Motown's first top 10 LPs, but it was mistaken for the single with the same name. Actually, Motown's first ever top 10 LP was the Supremes' Where'd Our Love Go in 1965. October 29th, 1962, Wells' third consecutive single to hit the top 10 of the pop charts release, called Two Lovers.
Let me tell you about my first lover.
Wells became the first female solo artist on Motown to have 3 consistent hits reach the top 10. She was simply on fire at this point in her career. Now, this song sold over 1 million copies, and as a result, she was given a gold disc from the Music Recording Certification. Now, Motown didn't register the RIAA until the 70s, so a lot of Motown early artists didn't have any gold or platinum records due to this. Motown recognized her success in 1962 when they was planning their first ever Motown Review tour, which was solely built around her as the headline act. In 1963, the single Laughing Boy released. Now, this song broke the consistent run that Wells had for hitting the top 10 on the pop charts. This song is still considered a classic to this day. January 31st, 1963, Wells' third album released titled Two Lovers and Other Great Hits. This album peaked at number 49 on the Billboard 200 charts. Also, in 1963, her marriage began to get rocky. It was said that Griffin was controlling, among other things. Plus, with the two getting married so young and still learning about each other, things just wasn't working out. The duo decided to get a divorce later that year, but they remained friends. Griffin also remained as her advisor and was still part of her travel team. On March 13th, 1964, Wells released her biggest hit called My Guy.
I'm sticking to my guy like a stamp to.
This single became Wells' second million selling single, earning another gold disc. Now, during this time, in the 60s was the Beatles' decade. They had 12 singles that was on the pop charts, plus owning the top 5 spots on the charts, until Mary Wells released My Guy. After this, she gained the nickname The Lady Who Dethroned the Beatles, also being known as the Beatles' favorite singer. With this huge accomplishment, the group invited her on tour, where she won the crowd overseas. While on tour, she began to hear rumors about her song and how big it was and how much money it began to rejuvenate. But she didn't see any of this. Now, with her ex-husband being in her ear a lot about Motown, allegedly telling her how the label was using the money from her hit records to promote other groups like the Supremes. To build on the success of My Guy, Motown paired Wells up with Marvin Gaye for the album Together, that peaked at number 42 on the Billboard 200 charts. Now, around this time, it was a huge rumor that Mary and Marvin was messing around with each other, but that's not true. After Griffin, along with some other people, began to get in Wells' ear about leaving Motown, her mind was made up. Gordy approached Wells to renegotiate her contract. When she asked for her release, it took Gordy by shock. By that, I mean she was at the top of her career and wanted her release, which was unheard of at this time. Motown decided to keep Wells out of the studio by filing a lawsuit. Motown invested a lot for Wells. Her wanting to leave left the label without a top female star. Motown learned from Wells on what worked and what didn't work and applied them to Diana Ross, which explains why when Wells left Motown, Diana shortly became the biggest female act in Motown. Wells was looking to gain a larger share of her royalties. Shortly after, her lawyers found a clause in her contract that resulted in Motown granting her release. In 1965, the court ruled in her favor and ordered Motown to pay her royalties, but with this release, it was stipulations that were set in place. Mainly, she wouldn't receive any royalties from her work after she left the label, so basically, this became a one-time payment. On top of that, she couldn't use her likeness to promote herself in the future. Basically, signing this, she signed away her freedom. In 1964, Wells signed a $200,000 contract with 20th Century Fox Records, which is about $1.8 million in today's money. Now with Fox, they promised her opportunities to appear in movies along with a bigger contract. To Mary, this was a great business move, but things started off rocky. Her first couple months after signing this new deal, she was bedridden for several weeks due to tuberculosis. With Motown keeping her out of studio with their lawsuit and now being bedridden for several weeks, the anticipation for another Mary Wells single was way overdue. Allegedly, Motown was threatening to sue radio stations for playing Wells' music. With the audience not knowing the full details at the time, on the outside looking in, it looks like Wells left a black label for a white label, which could have played a part into why her singles with Fox failed. The only successful single that she had under Fox was Use Your Head.
Oh no, boy, he's only trying to break us up, trying to make.
After 2 unsuccessful albums with Fox, Wells asked for her release in 1966, and later that year, she signed with Atco Records. Around the mid-60s, Wells and a member of the Valentinos, Cecile Womack, began dating, and they later married in 1966. The couple had 3 children together. Atco Records paired producer Carl Davis with Wells when they came out with the single Dear Lover.
Oh, I miss you so much, and I wish I could just see you.
Wells faced the same problems with Atco as she did with Fox, which was an unsuccessful run. In 1968, Wells left Atco to sign with Julie B Records. In the 1970s, she left the label to sign with Reprise Records. So, within a 4-year span, Wells was part of 4 different record labels. Personally, I think Wells struggled after leaving Motown due to her not finding the right producer that fit her voice. So, in 1974, she decided to retire from music to raise her family. Wells and Womack's relationship began to fail, personal and business, as she felt that he held her career back.
You didn't really want me to be no entertainer. You were supposed to help me with my career, but he was putting it more into a slump.
She really wasn't content being just a wife and mother, and I think that may be the reason for her perhaps unusually harsh criticism of Cecil.
The marriage lasted for 11 years before the couple divorced. Mary began to develop a relationship with Cecile's younger brother Curtis. When the family found out, it was at this moment that drove the family apart.
At the time, few were aware of a long-simmering relationship between Mary and Cecil's brother, Curtis Womack. But as her marriage with Cecil fell apart, their romance grew.
We got along very good, like, brother and sister. People were used to us being around each other that way. You're out in each other's face, and one day you start kissing. You know what I'm saying?
If you're into a marriage, a lot of years, that's not working, and somebody that's always there with their hands out for friendship, you're gonna put your hand out for them.
Everybody basically blamed Mary. I try to tell the rest of the family that it takes two, You can't just say it's her fault. What about her brother?
When the world found out about this relationship, this became a groundbreaking moment that caused her to try to harm herself. As a result, she was in a coma for 3 days.
I tried to kill myself. Cecil was suffering. Curtis was suffering. I just could not deal with it. When I took those pills, I just wanted relief.
Curtis and Mary had a child together, and allegedly Curtis was very physical towards Mary, as well as introducing her to drugs.
Started taking drugs. I was about 33 years old. I snorted, and it relieved me of every bit of pain I ever felt. It made me relax.
When her and Cecil was together, she was more domesticated. And then when she got with me, she was more her own person, making her own decisions.
We just had to learn to sort of deal with what she was going through on her basis, because no one could make her stop doing what she was doing. She was going to do that anyway.
Although her relationship with Curtis would continue for more than a decade, it would remain a rocky ride.
He beat me more than once. 2 black eyes, a puffed up nose, and my cap's knocked out, my lips swollen.
You didn't start no stuff with Mary. You didn't start no stuff with Mary. You'll be fighting her to make sure she didn't, really mess you up.
In 1977, Wells made a return to music. CBS urban president Larkin Arnold had some experience with working with former Motown artists and felt that he could help her. He offered her a contract with Epic Records. Now, when she first came to Epic, her sound was too much R&B-ish, and during this time in the 80s, the sound was more up-tempo and with the rise of disco. In 1981, Mary earned her way back onto the charts with the song Gigolo.
But ooh, yeah, such a gentleman.
With positive reviews of this single gave Wells motivation to continue to sing. In 1983, Wells left Epic Records to continue to tour independently, where she saw major success, especially with the Hispanic community. On April 21st, 1984, on an episode of America's Top 40, it was reported that Wells had started up a hot dog chain. So by the looks of it, it looks like Wells had plans beyond music. Now, Mary was known to be a chain smoker, reportedly smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. In 1990, she noticed that she wasn't able to perform to her full capacity, even at times whispering her songs. Later that year, she went to the doctors to see what was going on and found out that she was diagnosed with throat cancer. Doctors wanted to remove her vocal cords to treat it, but she refused. So, after 6 weeks of chemo, it left her voice not being able to speak higher than a whisper. causing Wells to retire from music for good. But Wells not being able to sing anymore, the money stopped coming in, and everything that she already had went towards her medical bills since she had no insurance. It got to the point where she was forced to sell her house. Now, word had gotten out about Mary's situation, and many musicians helped raise over $100,000 for Mary's medical bills, like Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, The Temptations, Dionne Warwick, and Aretha Franklin, to name a few. In 1990, her cancer went into remission and her health began to get better. In 1991, Wells decided to file a lawsuit against Motown for royalties that she never received. Motown settled out of court at an undisclosed amount. That same year, she testified for the funding of cancer research. By the summer of 1991, Wells' cancer returned. The cancer spread to her lungs as she never stopped smoking cigarettes. That next year, Wells was rushed to the hospital for pneumonia. After so many unsuccessful treatments had weakened her immune system, and sadly, on July 26, 1992, she passed away at the age of 49. In 1989, Wells was given one of the first Pioneer Awards, and in 2006, he was inducted into the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame, along with being eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, being nominated twice in 1986 and 1987. To me, I feel that Mary Wells was blackballed for leaving Motown. Mary Wells deserves so much respect, as she was the first lady of Motown, playing a huge role into what made Motown so popular to begin with, even paving the way for Diana Ross. Also, no matter what Miss Wells went through in her life, she always kept a smile on her face. Now, before we go, I have a question for you all. What is your favorite song from Mary Wells?
Motown star Mary Wells is known for her hit single, My God. But the singer's happy tune hit a sad note when she faced a painful battle against throat cancer. In 1964, the voice of Mary Wells made My God #1. 25 years later, that voice was virtually gone.
Because I have cancer, I'm fighting for my life.
Mary blamed smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day for years. Longtime friend Dionne Warwick says Mary learned how seriously ill she was in 1990.
I got a call from her. She was appearing in Canada, and her throat just cut out on her. She couldn't sing. She could barely talk.
Mary underwent treatment, and a temporary implant allowed her to speak. She told us doctors were optimistic.
I feel great. I miss my voice, but hopefully it'll come back. I'm praying that it does, because I put a lot of time in my career, and I've been singing all my life. I don't know any other trade, and I miss it dearly. Nothing you could buy can make me turn my life.
My Guy topped the charts when Mary was just 21. She had 3 more top 10 hits for Motown, the fledgling label she joined at 17.
Mary Wells was a star. Mary Wells was definitely the first lady of Motown.
Former Supreme Mary Wilson says her group was inspired by Wells.
Mary Wells would come through the lobby, and she'd have her entourage behind her, and we were standing there like, wow, yeah, that's the way we want to be.
By 1990, unable to perform, her finances were drained by medical expenses. When she and her then 4-year-old daughter Sugar were evicted from their apartments, money came from Rod Stewart, Bruce Springsteen, Diana Ross, and her former boss at Motown.
Well, Barry Gordy gave $25,000, and he did come through.
Her friends arranged benefit concerts, with Anita Baker raising $10,000 through this show.
I'm just so pleased that we can help each other, and everything will be fine. Mary Wells is, she's one of our institutions, and we can't
see an institution fail.
Mary would also file a lawsuit against Motown and its new owners at Universal, claiming the company owed her money.
Mary Wells herself should be receiving her royalties, and the fact is that she isn't.
Motown countered with the argument that Mary had surrendered her royalties when she left in 1964.
She agreed under a court settlement to waive her future royalties for the right to leave her contract with 3 years left on it for Motown.
She won a six-figure out-of-court settlement, but cancer returned and Mary would pass away in July 1992. Her funeral drew Little Richard, Stevie Wonder, and Smokey Robinson, who had written her biggest hits.
Nothing you could do, 'cause I'm stuck like glue to my guy.
To the end, in the face of all her problems, she remained optimistic.
I just look at the best things that are happening in my life, and I tell Satan to get behind me and let the Lord get in front of me.